All right. So still day 1973, Leningrad. Interzonal, white took Vladimir Tukmakov and black Viktor Korchnoi. This is the last decisive result of round 1. d4 knight f6, c4 e6, g3. So kind of a Catalan invitation. These are based somewhat on the notes by Tukmakov from the Soviet tournament book of the Leningrad 1973 tournament. From the Douglas Griffin's translations. It's a great, excellent blog about Soviet chess. Here Tukmakov notes that they have played a few Nimzo Indians in the past. Well, knight f3, knight c3, knight bishop b4s. So here he wanted to avoid any prep and goes for the Catalan instead. We get d5, and here bishop g2 takes, and knight f3. So kind of a pawn sack line instead of going for the straight up get the pawn back. But the queen always gets a little bit harassed on c4. And Korchnoi plays b5, keeps his pawn. Of course, this is a risky diagonal, but somehow usually black's setup handles this. Like if knight d5, you can play knight d5 to block the bishop and be completely fine. Even some crazy lines like c6 are possible, well, I guess those give up the pawn back. But these are not, somehow these do hold. Now if you take here, you can take back with the rook and then probably chance the bishop here. But yeah, use the other typical ways to keep on holding for the pawn by blocking the diagonal here. But we don't get that. We go for a4 instead in the game. c6. Now block this, but can be opened up. Takes and knight e5. But then again, knight can always come block this, and well, white does have the center. That's the compensation he usually gets for the pawn. It's a very double-edged. But here we don't get that. We get castles instead. And black keeps trying to solidify his queen side, the extra pawn. And white goes for the active knight e5. And here Korchnoi just plays a6. Further making it more sturdier. Now there is no takes anymore because, well, rook's protected in the corner. This is covered twice. Anything like yeah, a takes, knight c3. Black has queen b6, or again the knight d5 is an alternatively good variation too. But again, play b3, typical move in the Catalan, or some of the queens can be accepted, for instance, where we just keep on breaking that. If takes, like happened in the game, get the queen here, queen going here, and here, for instance, well, actually, yeah, this is what happened in the game, but Tukmakov did not take back. He notes that the second pawn sack probably be too far away. And black gets his position in order. 2 pawns down. Even though engine notes that this is completely equal and white has the compensation for the 2 pawns here. But it definitely would be scary to play. It's like it's not obvious at all where the compensation is coming. Of course, white's up ahead and has an active knight there, and the queen is a little exposed, so we're probably gonna get some tempos on it, but still. 2 pawns are 2 pawns. But anyways, we don't get that. We get bishop b2 instead. Defending here. And it's not like you can defend this easily. It's going to drop off eventually anyways. Well, queen b6, quite typical move too. Basically defends all the points. Very solid. And white gets his pawn, one of the pawns back. Black develops knight bd7. Challenges the active knight here. Tukmakov comes up with an interesting idea. Knight takes d7. The point is that we want to get this knight off this diagonal and some ideas against g7. Knight d2 first. Now the bishop is kind of stuck guarding this. I guess the white could always, or black could perhaps go back here, but you have some ideas, then your queen would not be defended anymore. We could have some ideas with the knight c4, for instance. Get another active knight there on e5. Pressure on c6. Anyways, in the game, Korchnoi didn't go for that. Just played bishop e7. And this is the point of white. He unleashes the bishop here by sacking this pawn, but breaks the black's king side, so castles are not options anymore. Bang, bang. And rook g8. And bishop comes back to c3. So king is going to be living in the center for now. Still black's up a pawn. Korchnoi comes up with the rook g4. Looking at this pawn here. The knight c5 ideas. Threatening to win a pawn. And white defends that by tactical means. Wins the b pawn second time. Well, so we can use the queen to take there in case white black would go for the pawn. Can just take, and the second pin is going to net us a piece. Well, instead of that, black highlights the weakness of the last move here. f2 pawn undefended. Goes bishop c5 instead. And here this gets very spicy now. We get really double-edged position. I mean it already was, but now we get really crazy. White defense with e3 and Korchnoi just bang. Bang. So he has 3 pawns for a piece. Some ideas with the knight could be coming here. Tempo. Bang. Bang. Maybe someday something like this, but at the moment the bishop is hanging, so. But it could happen like here and take. Some shenanigans there. Oh, rook c8. There was some crazy lines with the knight c5 though. White can just about hold on to this queen f3 and attacking the queen, so and just about survive this mess here. I mean, eventually I can have to go to f1 if you want to play for a win. But yeah, somehow this just about holds. But yeah, I don't know if anybody wants to go for this mess. Tukmakov also points out the other line is that knight f1 would have been also okay. Here the engine finds some crazy line like queen c1. Absolute madness. Point is that if you take, we go here and fork you. So I think here the line is something like bang, 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 bang. And we have got some crazy equality. But I don't know. Seems completely messy. I mean, it's quite similar to the game in material wise. Anyways, we don't get any of this rook c8 and instead attacking the bishop, and bishop goes to a5, and we get the queen trade, and rook picks up a pawn, and rook takes, pawn takes. Here, instead of this, well, I think getting the king involved was have been a little better. Even though the double pawn is somehow quite annoying for white. Like it would have been better to let the pawn speed this way than taking here, and somehow the a pawn is quite fast in some lines. And also it gets a tempo on the knight. But this is still holdable. But yeah, we get quite a weird material imbalance. 4 pawns for a piece. And it is definitely quite difficult for white to manage here. Engine is always holding this, but for humans it's very difficult. Oh, bishop c6, it was attacked. Maybe we are going here. White pins the bishop to the rook. Knight e5 defends the bishop and also frees the d7 for the king to come out and to involve too. White offers a trade, and black accepts that and just starts pushing the pawns. Here white plays bishop h5. It's perhaps the wrong plan. It's not that obvious though, but engine wanted some kind of a trade and rook a1, or somehow this is still in balance, but those are a lot of pawns though. Well, here f5 is maybe a mistake from black, but it's not easy to see that you could have played some rook b8, and now this pawn is taboo since a3 somehow wins. I have to stop it. This is a big threat now. And if you go here, you had the king e7, and then you rook b5, winning the bishop. But yeah, that's definitely not that easy to see. f5 is kind of natural. Get the pawn going. White tries to break huge 3 passed pawns there. Well, I guess this was not really a passer, but 3 pawn island there. And black takes. Probably better was just to go forward instead. Or also rook g8. Just pin the pawn. This gives some chances for white. Instead of taking here, they pin the d pawn, now threatening this few of them. So black blocks with the bishop here, and rook takes. This was they should have taken here. This throws away the game. Now they have no way of stopping the a pawn. Bishop g4 still would have been enough, but here white still has to find a rook a1 to stop the a pawn again. But yeah, it's still difficult. Engine thinks it's balanced, but still you have 4 pawns for the bishop pair, but you know, they may be a little immobile at the moment. But after this, that was first very accurate move, rook check, and then start to push the a pawn. White tries the tricky bishop g4. If you go after under the pawn, it's just it's protected here, and you can't do anything about promotions here. So least tricky takes is threatened. The problem is that that's not a real threat. If you take here, black would go here and you can't go here, and rook's hanging now. Brilliant. This is coming here. So instead of taking, white tried the last trick here, bishop c3. Now if you take the bishop, then we can take and go under the pawn and save the game. But black was not that naive. Gives in between check. And now after king e1, if you went to the any of these squares, you drop the bishop with check instead. Well, couldn't go there of course because bishop, but now the black can take the bishop. Okay, white took here, king e7, rook d1. The problem is that now there, if you go under the pawn, there is the check and promotions. So he goes rook d1, stops this way, but black just plays rook b3, threatens this, and there is nothing you can do about it. Bishop can't come here and stop that. So here, white resigned. Thought that was a cool game. You rarely see that kind of a imbalance with 4 pawns for a piece. I mean, it was probably impossible to play accurately. But yeah, very, very nice game. Okie dokie. Until next time. Bye bye.